6 days until the public phase of the impeachment hearings, and allies of the president are still road testing their arguments against the inquiry, moving on from things like there was no quid pro quo or quid pro quo isn't an impeachable offense to some things arguably even more implausible.
What I can tell you about the Trump policy toward the Ukraine, it was incoherent. It depends on who you talk to. They seem to be incapable of forming a quid pro quo.
Here's a question. Why did Sunderland change his testimony? Was there a connection between Sunderland and Democratic operatives on the committee? Did he talk to Schiff? Did he talk to Schiff staffers? I've been a lawyer for a very long time. When somebody changes their testimony, they suddenly recall something they didn't know before. It makes me incredibly suspicious.
So Lindsey Graham arguing that White House policy is such a mess they couldn't have come up with a quid pro quo, or that someone who gave the president's inaugural committee $1 million is now colluding with the head of the impeachment inquiry? On top of that, Republicans haven't given up on another tactic: attack your opponents.
Speaker Nancy Pelosi is trying to impeach him. I don't mean any disrespect, but it must suck to be that dumb.
He means no disrespect. With Senate Republicans willing to cast doubt on the process and the people in charge of it, one thing is clear. They are firmly in President Trump's corner, and not much is likely to change that. Joining me, former Republican congressman from Florida, now MSNBC political contributor David Jolly, and national security correspondent from Politico, Natasha Bertrand. Good to see both of you. You know, in the face of damning testimony from Gordon Sondland, the U.S. ambassador to the EU, Senator Graham is insisting that the allegations facing the president are part of some larger conspiracy. David, look, there's nothing new about floating trial balloons. See what resonates. See if there's a line of argument that will work for you. But what do you make of this Sondland-Schiff conspiracy theory? And one of the president's biggest defenders basically saying they couldn't pull off a quid pro quo. They aren't smart enough.
Yeah, right. Lindsey Graham's latest defense is that Donald Trump's too stupid to pull off the crime. That's what he's saying. He's saying Donald Trump's too stupid to do anything actually wrong. The problem is all of the corroborating evidence says they knew exactly what they were doing, and all of the evidence of career diplomatic corps as well as political appointees and political friends like Sondland, somebody who gave the president $1 million, are testifying that absolutely there was a quid pro quo. And we also know that it went so far as to have Donald Trump's team draft statements for Zelensky to give. This is a very deep and complex and well-coordinated scheme of impeachable activity. Lindsey Graham knows that. He has no other defense to the fact that it's impeachable activity, which was why the last thing he said was, I don't actually care. I'm not going to even look at the facts. This is over for me. Well, he's doing a disservice to the nation when he does that, and he's not fulfilling the oath of his office, which requires him to well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office upon which he has entered. If you're not going to do your job, leave the Senate.
So, Natasha, we're 45 days into this inquiry. Why haven't Republicans, or the president for that matter, come up with at least a clear and consistent defense?
Well, they're seeing what sticks, right? They're throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks because they're not getting any real guidance from the White House on this. There is no real war room happening inside of the White House on impeachment because they've insisted that the president did nothing wrong and that impeachment is all a scam. So why would they invest time and resources into creating this kind of really focused war room, for example, the kind that Bill Clinton had during his impeachment process? But this whole narrative that Lindsey Graham now is pushing forward that, you know, the Trump people are just too dumb to put something like this out there is really undermined by the fact that the Ukrainians felt this pressure. I mean, we're learning new details now about the lengths that Zelensky was prepared to go to in order to get this military aid released. They were preparing to go on CNN and give a statement saying that they were going to commit to these public investigations because they felt so squeezed by what the Trump administration was doing. And this wasn't just Trump. Remember, this was also diplomats that he kind of farmed out in order to pursue his own personal political objectives by squeezing the Ukrainians. So for Lindsey Graham to say this is really nonsensical in light of all of the testimony we've gotten. And he doesn't even seem to know Sondland's name. He referred to him as Sutherland.
Yeah.
So it really doesn't seem like he's the best person to be speaking about this.
So, David, when they aren't fighting with Democrats, the president and his allies are apparently fighting with other Republicans. And the target now is Jeff Sessions, who's going to run for the same Senate seat he vacated to become Attorney General. One representative, a Floridian, wrote on Twitter, Jeff Sessions returning to the Senate is a terrible idea. This is someone, Jeff Sessions, who remains popular in the state, who has tremendous name recognition in what is probably the Republicans' best chance for a pickup. But how likely is that to keep President Trump from repeating the attacks he has made since he fired Sessions?
Oh, it's personal for Trump, and we're going to see that on display. And the interesting thing here is he likely will be the next United States Senator from Alabama. The odds would be that he can return to the United States Senate. Doug Jones, because of the way he arrived by beating Roy Moore, is now statistically the most vulnerable senator in the United States Senate, facing a real uphill battle. The Alabama Republican primary is crowded with 4 or 5 candidates, several of them very strong, with equal or more cash on hand than Jeff Sessions. But Sessions remains increasingly popular in Alabama, and this will create a distraction for Republicans trying to hold the United States Senate. They can only afford to lose 4 seats, and there are 4 very vulnerable senators right now in Arizona, Colorado, Maine, and North Carolina. They don't need drama in Alabama, and that's what they're concerned about. But at the end of the day, you may see Jeff Sessions.
How does McConnell play into all this, David? I mean, look, you know how that works in there. Where's Mitch McConnell going to be in all this?
So McConnell doesn't want drama. So right now, what McConnell and his team have done without endorsing anybody is they're providing resources to candidates like Bradley Byrne, a favorite of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Tommy Tuberville, who's an Auburn coach, who is also popular and raising a fair amount of money. They ultimately would prefer Sessions not get in because they don't want the drama, but they know Sessions can win it. And so they're going to stay on the sideline, and they'll put all their chips in if it is Sessions or Byrne or Tuberville that win the primary.
Former Congressman David Jolly, Natasha Bertrand, always great to see you as well. Thanks to both of you.